Downtown, I got that heat, let's go. Downtown, I got that heat, let's go.
Yo, Dennis, what up? Oh, snap. I think he's muted.
Sorry, not much. It's Friday night. It's me and you on the show. Two titans in the telco industry. You know it's going to be a great stream. I'm seeing so many friendly faces in the audience. I saw Archie out there. I saw Tech Guy MS, and so many people eagerly waiting to hear your voice, Sneed. So I know it's going to be a great night. I know you got a lot of topics lined up, but as we were discussing, as we were getting ready for the show, I do have a famous Dennis story time to quickly share with the folks. It's been a hot minute since the story has been shared, so I'm just going to kick that off real quick.
All right, let's do some hellos. Anthony, Rage and Dusty, welcome to the show, guys. South Joe, Ohio Rail fan, welcome to you as well. Archie, we saw them earlier there. MS is in the house. Appreciate it. All my members and my mods, big salute to you guys. Tech Guy 32 is here. We got Thomas. Max Tech Studios is here. Bobby, and I think there was one more that I may have missed. Nope, that's it. That's everybody that's here that's in the live chat. We got 29 in the live. Do me a solid. Please do rate this video. Share it if you got socials. That helps the channel get some reach. The YouTube algo has not been kind lately. So any way you could support the channel is amazing, and we appreciate it. Story time with Uncle Dennis. Take it away, sir.
So today I had to reach out to AT&T. I called their customer support. Reason why I was reaching out to them was because AT&T had decommissioned their old AT&T call filter with a new Active Armor app. And when I was trying to activate the Active Armor for my line, I wasn't able to get it activated. I was running into issues. And what Active Armor is, for anyone that's not aware, is it's basically like AT&T's equivalent to T-Mobile Scam Shield. It allows you to block calls and do all that fun stuff. Anyway, called an AT&T, went through their customer support, their little IVR, got a rep within a minute, which was very impressive, did not have to wait long, and connected to an awesome, and I mean this sincerely, one of the best customer service I ever interacted with, named Zoe. She was from the UK, which first off I found astonishing. I've never been connected to a UK rep, but apparently when I was talking to her, I found out AT&T's actually been employing a bunch of customer service reps across all of Europe, and so we had a lot of general conversations. The call went for like an hour. My issue didn't get resolved; it got escalated. But the reason why I'm bringing up this story is because the overall actual customer service experience was the goal, in my opinion, the gold standard for what T-Mobile and Verizon should be aiming for. The tools that AT&T is providing to their reps to be able to diagnose and troubleshoot customer issues has come such a remarkably long way from where AT&T was. Because as you know, Sneed, my family's been with AT&T since AT&T was born, essentially, right? So I've experienced what their service was like back when they called themselves Cellular, back to when they called themselves AT&T. I lived when they were the most hated company in NPS scores in the country, and I've gotten to see the revolution. And some of the things that, like, when I talk about tools, like some of the things that were nice and convenient was AT&T now has a separate app you can download, for example, to allow an agent to actually see your phone. This isn't new tech. Verizon has it baked into their My Verizon app, but what I thought was nice about AT&T's execution on the app was they give the customer control on what the agent actually sees. So you could, like, say, for example, stop the screen sharing until you get to the specific location where you need to report the trouble. As someone that considers privacy and security as something important, those small minor touches, that polish that AT&T put into thinking through when it came to that app was just really well touched. The agent just super friendly. I mean, we talked about so many different things, man. I mean, we talked about travel. We talked about freaking healthcare. I mean, we just talked about anything and everything. And it was honestly...
Rabbit holes, huh?
Yeah, rabbit holes. It was honestly, like, again, my problem didn't really get solved. It's escalated. I'll get a call back or whatever whenever they get done looking into it. But it was just such a positive and good interaction. And it's the reason why I just freaking love AT&T. Like, got support quickly. Spoke to someone that was intelligent and well-trained and absolutely friendly. I mean, this person born for customer service, just super friendly. Name's Zoe, and you know I'm terrible with names, but I'll remember that name. Great interaction. Overall, just a really good experience, and AT&T deserved a proper shout-out for it, and because I was also impressed by the tools that they give to their care agents. So that's my quick story time with Dennis.
So not every customer care call ends like that. A lot of times they end, disgruntled, person ends up being disgruntled, not really having a solution. At least you got an escalation, which gets you one step closer to a solution. But that's good. And, AT&T's come a long way. There was a time where they were the butt of the industry when it came to customer care. You get somebody overseas that wasn't equipped to help you, not properly trained, didn't have the tools access, you'd get the runaround, and they'd start transferring you, and then you end up in like 3 different departments, and they can't help you.
Not a single transfer happened to that
Yeah,
call the whole
that's
time.
good.
Yeah, no,
That's valuable, man. Your
yeah, not
time
a
was
single
valued, right?
transfer. Yeah, no, I mean it took, like I said, it took an hour, but granted, a lot of time was just chit
Well,
chatting
you
and
were
while she was
kicking
talking. Well, she was
you were
talking to the active armor team, but I like that, right? Like they gave their agent the ability to talk to the respective teams, and then, like I said, she took the information using the app, she took the screenshots of the air, and everything is good. It's for active armor. It's not the end of the world. Like it's not a big issue, right? But I mean, I want it corrected, but like it's not a big issue, and I was more impressed just by the tools and how quickly I was able to get an agent. I mean, less than a minute is freaking impressive. And and yes, it was an international rep, but it was someone from Europe, from the UK specifically. So obviously very easy to communicate with. She was clearly overeducated for the job. I mean, she was very well trained. But it was just a good experience, and like I said, like these little things, even down to like the actual app and giving the control of the user of like what specifically gets shared when, like these are little things that I think T-Mobile and Verizon respectively can work towards. Because like I said, I know Verizon has screen sharing, I know they can like let people log in, but that level of detail, those little bits of polish, they do get noticed by me at least. So
yeah, nice.
hopefully we can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. We got our first super chat of the night, Broken Seal from Southwest Ohio Speed Testing. Member, big supporter of the channel. We appreciate you, friend of the show, Mr. Southwest Ohio Speed Testing. He said, it's a great night when we have Dental giving us story time and spicy hot takes. Can't wait to see you all shows up and hope everyone is doing well. Thanks, man. Big salute to you. Appreciate all you do for the channel. And we're here to entertain and inform. I think that's our purpose. So big shout out to you and thank you, man. And Brandon House. What up, Brandon?
What up?
What's
What's the topic tonight? I see y'all are talking about AT&T.
It was just a story. Yeah,
kind of like a success story, we'll call it, I suppose.
Yeah, giving kudos when kudos are due.
Yeah.
When I speak on the phone and I say I'll share my stories whether good or bad, I mean that sincerely. Now, how many people
really
actually hear me?
Yeah. No, you do. You definitely do. Yeah.
But
I mean,
anyway,
I remember when you took your trip, and I think you were out in Minnesota or something. And you know, what airport were you at? And you were a speed testing carrier.
No, yeah, you're right. That was the Minneapolis airport.
Okay, yeah. So you were and you were you were evaluating them very objectively. You gave the carriers that perform well their props. You critique the ones that were struggling. And
I mean, they all sucked at that airport, in my opinion. They all sucked. That was
Verizon shouldn't suck. They got MCA fiber, has a big footprint there. They got millimeter waves. That was like their first or second market. It should be better.
Well, they all sucked. I feel bad for anyone that gets put in that airport. If connectivity is important to you, you should probably avoid that.
No, you need Dish is what you need.
I do have Dish, which on a side note, yeah, I do have a Rainbow SIM now. I checked. There is no Dish coverage at my house. Womp womp.
Yeah, disappointing. But AT&T's goated.
It is, and with the Dish SIM, you get the added benefit of an additional 100 milliseconds of latency. Woo! Because we already know AT&T definitely thrives when it comes to ping times, as we saw from Root Metrics. That was definitely their strong suit. That was sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, we got real topics set up tonight that you've obviously spent the time, blood, sweat, and tears to prepare for the audience. Which one do you want to lean into?
Let's start with the Verizon network upgrade story first. I've been covering the markets that have been upgraded because, people have been asking and, people want to know and they want to keep up to speed on what's going on. And I did the same thing when T-Mobile was upgrading N41. I basically covered every city that got mass scale upgrades where there was like a news update, whether it was like T-Mobile.
Sneed, you're
tabs of it. So that's kind of what we're doing. With respect to this particular update, this one is Providence. Okay, so we're talking about Rhode Island. All right, I'm having trouble with my webcam. I'm going to just disable this for a second. All right, so what we're going to do here is just cover the main three details. We're going to look at the fiber circuit upgrade. We're going to look at the amount of bandwidth, and then we're going to look at see if it's C-band or millimeter wave or both or whatever. All right, so this is Providence, Rhode Island here. All right, so it says here that 5G ultra wideband upgrades across Providence in the form of millimeter wave and C-band. It says with the recent upgrades, this puts 86% of people in Providence having access to 5G service from Verizon. Now, they say 5G, that means millimeter wave, C-band, could also potentially just be like the DSS stuff, whatever, the low band or whatever, band 2. All right, so they've got all the fixins. It says here locations including East Providence, Price, Riverside, Kent, Orlo Ave, Woodgate, Armington, Crook Point. They got a bunch of locations here, so you guys can check that out on your own if you want. But it says C-band specifically focusing on Attleboro, Massachusetts, Fall River, Massachusetts, Warwick, Rhode Island, Newport, and I don't even know how to say this, Narragansett. I don't even know. The C-band is a 60 megahertz bandwidth channel. You'll get the rest of the bandwidth by the end of the summer from what we're hearing. The repack from satellite will be happening very, very soon, so like within the next month or so. And you're getting 10 gig fiber circuit upgrades across the board. So basically wherever they put up their upgrades, they're giving it some real serious fiber circuit capacity. So the 10 gig fiber is crucial. When you upgrade tower sites and just put up radios and antennas and you just do a 1 gig circuit, you're kind of neutering the potential, especially when the company Verizon is double dipping. They're doing mobile networking and they're doing fixed wireless access. In my opinion, if you're going to put up 100, 140, 160, 200 megahertz of C-band, a 10 gig circuit is a mandatory asset, right? Doing a 1 gig is like a Band-Aid, right? It's not going to be a true long-term solution. And you really can't do millimeter wave on a 1 gig circuit either, right? You got 800 megahertz of bandwidth going on there. You need a 10 gig circuit, and that's what they're doing.
I think this is just a slightly cost-effective, small hot take. I think that forget millimeter wave for a second. If it's just a mid-band upgrade up to about 100 megahertz, I think carriers can get away with even just like a 2.5 or 5 gig backhaul. The reason why I'm saying that is because from a peak speed standpoint, right? Like, what's the highest speed we've seen from 100 megahertz from Verizon? It's what, like a little bit over a gig, like 1.4.
Yeah.
So, like, realistically speaking, having extra backhaul there is always nice because there's other sectors that need to be fed. But realistically speaking, they could probably get away with less from a cost effective standpoint and still achieve the same results.
I just don't know if there's a 2.5 gig circuit that's any type of standard. We see the 1 gig bump up to 10 typically.
Well,
right?
that's just because the cost.
But then it also future proofs the site.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say from a cost standpoint, that's because when you're talking about the cost, it's for most places not that different. Like, it's not like the cost from going from a gig to 10 gig is like minute, so you don't need to worry about those intermediaries.
Is it though?
What,
1 gig
cost?
to 10 is 1 gig to 10 gig is very minimal.
I mean,
because the availability is the hard part, Dennis. It's not really the fact about cost that the carriers are having trouble with. It's the fact that there are places where it doesn't exist. Like take Pennsylvania, for example. I just spoke to a fellow who was running a wireless ISP in central PA, in rural central PA. And he told me there are no 10 gig circuits. There are carriers that are literally, in order to get over a gig, 1.4 gig, they have to use microwave. They can get 1 gig fiber. They can't go beyond it. So they're going with 1.4 gig microwave, right? You see what I'm saying? To get that extra little bit of bandwidth.
Which is funny to me because, honestly, you could always just buy 2 1 gig lines and aggregate them at the cell.
No.
Why couldn't you?
I don't. That's not what they're doing. I don't know.
Or you could definitely do it. You could either aggregate them or you could just run 1 gig to each panel.
I don't question the guys that are in the business. I'm just saying what we're seeing is insane because and actually the cost is better on the microwave too.
That's true.
Yes, but it does add latency, right? Now you're going to be hanging around in the 40s, before it even gets to the user, right? You're going to be between like 20 and 40 millisecond at the site, right? So I don't know, but I'm just saying, that really is the hard part. We still have infrastructure constraints across the country. If it's not a metro, 10 gigs hard to come by.
I mean, dude, even in the metros, sometimes it's hard to come by. Like, depending on the permitting of the county and the zip code, it can be hard to get, like, permitting done if you have to go, especially if they run underground to get like a 10 gig line if it's not already in place. I've seen microwave being used even in parts of Pittsburgh at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I see microwave randomly here in the CLE too, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah, like
What I
literally.
think happens for cost, Dennis, is they start to daisy chain a singular fiber site, so they'll run like 3 sites, or 2 or 3 sites with that one fiber feed.
It's such a waste, though. Like, going back to what you were saying there, right? Like, to put up extra spectrum and not up the backhaul is literally pointless. Like,
well, if you choose not to. If you can't, it's one thing. If you choose not to, that's a problem.
Yeah, but even so let's say you can't, right? Then why even waste the money of upgrading that cell site where you could put that equipment on another cell site where you could do both, right? Like,
well, you can upgrade all the equipment at all the tower sites, but still have fiber issues.
But I'm saying, like, okay, let's use a really good example of this, right? Remember down in Elwood City, up on top of Jockey Moore Row, right? T-Mobile put up N41 there, but they didn't upgrade their backhaul until literally within like the last 3 months. So even with 100 megahertz of N41 on air, right, and 15 megahertz of band 2, and 5 megahertz of 12, and 5 megahertz of 71, 5 megahertz of N71, right, their speeds were absolute dog water. It was like 30 meg down, like 5 meg up with like 120 millisecond latency. Just dog water. Like, after the upgrade, it was actually worse than what it was before. Before, it was getting like 70. But they did all those upgrades, but they didn't touch the backhaul for whatever reason. The extra spectrum did nothing. It just changed an icon on my phone. That's it. It's all it did. It's all it did. Now, to be clear here, they upgraded the backhaul. That site is fantastic. Now it gets literally like 700, 750 meg all day. But until they upgraded the backhaul, having that spectrum on air did nothing. Made the experience worse for me when I was not connecting to that cell site.
Let me get Brandon in here. Brandon, what's your take, man? You hear what we're saying?
Catch me up a little bit. I'm sorry. I was reading something.
Well, because, everybody's experiences are different. Dennis is sharing his. We're talking about backhaul and how some sites don't really have, I call it juice, right? It's like, it's the juice that, it's like tower sites are guns and the bullets is the fiber that's feeding it. You can have all this spectrum. You could have 100 megahertz of this, 140 megahertz of that, whatever. But, you got to have 10 gig fiber. And, the CLE, we just started seeing T-Mobile go 10 gig fiber on some sites.
And,
right? And it's made a difference. It's made a difference.
And to Sneed's analogy about guns and bullets, my argument basically is there's no point in upgrading the weaponry to the cell site from a small pistol to an AK-47 if you're not going to load up some 7.62 rounds to it, because you can't fire anything. You might as well it's the same stick. You're still beating someone down with the same stick. But
yeah, man. So yeah, that's what we were talking about. B. It was.
I mean, I've noticed that Verizon is getting severely congested on ultra wideband here in Houston.
So do you think that's because of the spectrum only being at 60 megahertz bandwidth, or do you think it's a backhaul limitation? Because at 60 megahertz bandwidth, you really only need a gig. Going beyond a gig doesn't help that much. It maybe helps you about 5 to 10%.
The thing that I feel is that a lot of people now have 5G devices more than ever before. And not only that, but when you in most cases, when you have no limits on ultra wideband, then obviously it's going to kind of cause congestion, because on Tuesday when I was using it, I was only getting 14 megabits on ultra wideband. And I've seen SpeedTech mention that he on his visible, what sometimes I notice that visible is just the same as postpaid, he was getting 2 megabits on ultra wideband. I'm like, what?
Yeah, the
I'm not
60
gonna lie.
megahertz. The 60 megahertz is not enough in places like
It's
Houston,
not.
Dallas, Atlanta, Miami. I mean, obviously they're probably going to have to split more cells, right? They're seriously just going to have to address the issue by adding more sectors, more sites. And of course,
Right.
you got to streamline 10 gig backhaul, but we can't neglect to mention 60 megahertz channel will not get the job done. They have to clear the rest of the C band, and I think then we could more accurately kind of paint the network.
Yeah, but
It's smaller. Oh, sorry. Go.
I was gonna say yeah, but Sneed, one thing I want to bring up here is I don't think it's a 60 megahertz issue, right? Because like let's turn back the clock a little bit, right? Prior to the 5G upgrades, like yes, Verizon suffered from congestion, but LT was performing like 30 meg, right? Like it was at least getting like 30 meg, pretty reliably, right? Just band 66, 13,
Yeah,
did the job most of the time, right?
some CBRS here and there, right?
Yeah, some CBRS here and there. So like for 5G 60 megahertz ultra wideband to be getting congested down to the point that Brandon's talking about in a market like his, I think there's a bigger question or a bigger issue at play, and it's something I personally noticed, is that Verizon is kind of doing a little bit of what T-Mobile did, and by that I mean they haven't actually upgraded every single macro in a market where they're covering 5G ultra wideband, right? Like I don't know if you've seen it over in CLE because CLE is like god tier heaven for Verizon apparently, but like what I've noticed is it'll be like every other site that's upgraded.
So do you see some of that dual connectivity stuff happening too?
Yeah.
See that's it's horrible efficiency. It actually ruins the connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think my suspicion is this isn't like a bandwidth megahertz problem. This is a not every site in the grid that serves Brandon's location in particular actually has the upgrades.
Yeah, it's possible. Could be. So if you were to turn off 5G, your experience would theoretically get better.
I would take a wild gander and say so.
I think you should test it.
Me or Brandon?
Anyone. I mean, if anyone's experiencing that, I can't do that. If I turn off 5G, it's fine. If I turn on 5G, it's fine. Every home, every building, most places I go to, 90% of the time, I'm still getting 5G ultra wideband indoors. But basically, every site's been upgraded. So I'm not the person to ask about this problem. It would have to be somebody with a similar experience where they could test it, put your phone into 5G, use it within these locations, come back at another time, put LTE to it, and then it should be fine, right? Theoretically, that's what you would test.
Yeah.
And then we could say, well, with some accuracy or with some connection, like a correlation, whatever they're doing on 5G with dual connectivity, with whatever, I don't know, configurations they have from site to site is the problem. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I've noticed that No Radio is always having a bad experience on Verizon and is always having the best of both worlds. It seems like was T-Mobile, and he's talked about him transferring his Verizon lines over to Spectrum and possibly his main one over to T-Mobile or something like that.
I mean, T-Mobile from a network standpoint, at least in Pittsburgh, is in a pretty good spot. Like, there's not too many so to be clear here, T-Mobile still has dead spots, right? Like, as far as like actual like bars on phone, T-Mobile's not going to be the best in Pittsburgh. That's AT&T still, right? But if we're just talking about like when you do have signal, what's the capacity look like? T-Mobile's very strong. Like, the upload might be pretty crappy, Sneed. I know you've seen the upload, you've commented on it, but if we're just talking about download speed and being able to use the phone, which most people are going to be doing more consumption than uploading, I would say, generally speaking.
Yeah. Yep.
T-Mobile's very strong in Pittsburgh, and I can see how like someone like No Radio might look at that because download honestly seems to be Verizon's weak point. Like, generally speaking, Verizon always has decent uplink. And that's just because their band 13 is so well deployed, and that's your anchor band. That's typically where your upload traffic's happening, or it's going to be the either the N2 or the N5 if you're talking about the DSS or if it's standalone in your market. But download has been a real struggle for Verizon, I would say, just across the board. They've had the lowest download speeds in most places that I've went to, unless there's millimeter wave deployed.
I think we're in a growing pain stage with some of the networking. You know, I think they've done a pretty nice job here. They clearly have not done the best or the same quality of job in every city. I think they're probably working through some hardware stuff, some software stuff. I also think like not every city has the same quality engineering, like the dedication to the craft, the mastery. I think there's some variables there. So you get some variation, but I do remember some growing pains for T-Mobile. I mean, I remember 40 megahertz of N41 at launch was 200 megabits per second and stopped working after a half mile and did not work indoors. Right. So I remember some of that stuff. I remember backhaul limitations. I remember propagation weakness. Like I remember 600 megahertz was a dumpster fire when they launched 5G.
Sneed, if you remember when we were talking at the very beginning of the show when we first met, I was complaining about how the T-Mobile network was the worst it's ever been when they were transitioning into that standalone upgrade. You remember I complained about calls. I complained about when standalone turned on.
Well,
I talked about how I couldn't send a text. I had to go to LT only because I couldn't access my voicemail if I was on 5G. I remember it all.
Here's a little update for you, Dennis. They have moved all 600 megahertz to 5G in your market. I just found that out.
You mean I don't have to deal with 5 megahertz channels anymore?
So I think they left 10 megahertz of LTE band 2 and 5 megahertz of band 12 on in your market for LTE.
Took them long enough.
So rejoice, I guess. But
maybe that's why.
I remember some sites, Dennis. I remember some sites running N2 for AT&T here in the CLE were junky too. I've seen it all, man.
I mean, dude, I've seen it all too.
I saw millimeter wave nodes failing. I saw CBRS radios failing. I've seen everything.
Sneed. I've seen it all too. If you remember, I remember when N77 first lit up for AT&T, and if you recall, I said it was worse than their LTE.
Yeah. You didn't like it.
But then it got fleshed out. Then AT&T fixed it, and now it's like a consistent 300 to 400 meg. It's very nice. It's kosher. And T-Mobile, I guess maybe got better because I finally got the 10 megahertz of low band. I don't know. T-Mobile's pretty solid. I'm not saying your bars on your phone is always going to be the strongest, but I'm saying you're generally speaking, you're not going to be really having any problems. Your Spotify is going to load. Your Google Maps is going to be working. It's pretty kosher. Oh, and even Verizon, just to be clear here, even Verizon in picture's okay. It's just they're just slow. Like Verizon will work, and you're honestly not going to notice that it's slow, especially since Verizon caps your video anyway.
I'm with you, Dennis. But the moment the quality or experience is impacted, all bets are off. It doesn't matter how fast or whatever it is. The network just has to work reliably. It's got to be available. And it's got to be reliable. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, like if your call fails, problem. If a text fails to send, that's a problem. If your 720p video is buffering, problem, right? Because you only need a few megs to make that happen.
Right.
That's kind of my expectation. The only time I speed test on my own time is if I feel something is wrong. I don't just randomly decide, okay, let me run 10 speed tests on these sectors right quick. It's not really my style, bro. I got better things to do. Yeah. I'd rather actually watch the video or consume the content I'm trying to on the device.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, honestly, unironically, can I just say something truthfully? Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know if you noticed this too Sneed, but I've noticed that AT&T's latency, so time to connect, has been getting worse, even though their speeds have gotten better.
So word on the street is, Dennis, is they've moved the cloud operations a little bit. Okay. We're starting to hear more and more cloud data traffic. So that might be adding some time, man.
Well, anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because unironically, so in my market, T-Mobile has the lowest ping times. It's generally speaking somewhere around 18 milliseconds, which is almost cable-like idle latencies, and even the loaded pings have come down a lot. And even though T-Mobile might not have, like, say, the fastest speeds in my house, if we're just talking about light tasks, like, say, loading, like, a Reddit page or something like that, I find T-Mobile to be the fastest to load it up. So it's actually been, like, pretty impressive transformation. Like, it's a really interesting time, right? AT&T's always been goated king in my market, and I want to be really, really, really clear when I say this. AT&T is still cracked and goated, and I wouldn't want to have anyone else. But I'm just saying, like, I'm starting to see a little bit of a paradigm shift here where, especially in, like, the inner city, like, I'm not just talking about the suburbs, but, like, deep in the inner parts of Pittsburgh where, like, T-Mobile's very well covered, like T-Mobile's fucking good. Like, they got in good.
Yeah. The proof is in the reports too. It's starting to show. They're starting to win reliability awards. They're starting to win experience awards, like from OpenSignal. We're starting to see higher scores and metrics on route, and you know, the even the JD Power reports are showing improvements. These are things that a lot of T-Mobile shills and, you know, the thongs and all that used to always say, like, oh, you know, Verizon is paying off these reports. Well, what are they doing now if T-Mobile's starting to win some of these awards?
Well, I'm just saying it's a good time to be alive. I've been with T-Mobile since 2013, so I've already had my data breached 1,000 times.
Oh,
So at
damn.
least now I can finally get a network that's actually worth the money I pay for. I know my buddy Nico's loving it. They upgraded his site out in Burgettstown, which is like a directly across. He gets like 900 meg. It's some of the fastest T-Mobile I've ever seen. He gets like 900 meg from that, and he gets like 900 meg from Verizon. He's so, dude. His cell site's he's in the perfect spot for fixed wireless. In fact, he actually put his parents back on the Verizon fixed wireless since he moved out.
Is it working well?
Yeah, for his parents, it's perfect. They don't care. He killed the fiber there because he got a place with his girlfriend. He's got Verizon Fios now. He lives out in Carnegie, not too far from
Yeah,
me.
he's got the fiber joint.
Well, he's got Fios now. Yeah, he moved out of his parents' place. That's where he was staying.
Yeah.
He had
Lucky him,
Hickory telephone fiber.
Oh God, hickory dickory dock. Here we go.
But anyway,
all right,
I'm
this
sorry,
next
we got
one,
off
Dennis.
traffic. Yeah.
This next one right here. We'll stick with Verizon, and then we'll kind of move on to some AT&T stuff. All right, coast to coast Verizon, unmatched in network quality. Let's read on. JD Power awards 6 regions for like customer satisfaction with regard to network experience. I forget the segments, like the breakdown, but there's 6 of them. And according to JD Power's survey and study, they are reporting all 6 regions went to Verizon. That's 31 times in a row, more than other wireless providers. It says Verizon has earned more than 190 of these JD Power awards over the last 20 years. It makes sense that they've always won these. They've always had a really, really good network. I think at some point, kind of what you were saying, Dennis, is we'll start to see, you know, opportunities for AT&T and T-Mobile to get in and get some of these awards. I think we're at that point because it almost comes an opportunity where they're all so close, they could switch from like quarter to quarter, year to year. So
And
my
that's what we
anticipation is that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Pretty soon.
And we want that as consumers.
100%. 100%. That's why when I started to report within the last year, Root Metrics, which has historically been dominated by Verizon, we started to see T-Mobile winning some. And I said, this is exactly what we wanted. And then they won more, right, in the following year. And now they're winning OpenSignal, you know, for experiences, which was always the quality issue, right? We would say, okay, well, they got fast speeds. Well, where's the reliability? Where's the latency? Where's all this? Those things are all starting to happen. That puts pressure on Verizon to be better. That puts pressure on AT&T to be better. That also puts pressure on cost. Like, why is cost for network access so affordable today, right? You can get a prepaid MVNO. You can get even the postpaid branded with multiple lines for like 30, 40 bucks, you know, for a multi-line account.
Yeah, but I want to say something what you just touched on. It depends on the network, man, because prepaid on Verizon QCI 9, you are a second-class citizen. That is not the Verizon experience. No, come on, Sneeze, seriously. Like, if you
It depends on the market.
If you have QCI 9 on Verizon, man, it's not a good experience. Like,
Depends on the
priority
market.
matters.
It depends on the market. I can get visible here, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between postpaid.
But But aside from that, you know what's been really telling as far as improvements go? It's whenever I have to do my flights, man. Whenever I'm in the airports, that to me is the really telling sign on which carrier is actually dominating. Because airports are probably the most
Tough.
network intensive challenge that any carrier can deal with, and it says a lot about the engineering and
Well, let me
what
ask
and
you this, Dennis. What's been
what's up.
so hard about airports for the last year for
Well,
Verizon and AT&T?
the FAA, the FAA. But hey, they had other cards in their pocket that they could have been doing prior to the N77. They had the
Sure.
millimeter wave. In fact, Verizon was one of the first people to get into the airports with millimeter wave. So that's on them.
Agreed. Agreed. Brandon, let me get you in here, bro. You've been quiet.
Um, I feel like Verizon the last couple of years has just been all over the place. I feel like they still have their areas, but I feel like now, like in major cities, like they've kind of changed a lot, like as far as the performance goes and stuff like that. Because I've noticed that here in Houston, that T-Mobile has become really, really good. Like sometimes on average, I get 3 to 400 everywhere on T-Mobile and only on 100 megahertz, and that's on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Um, while Verizon is slowing down significantly, or other areas where there isn't that much congestion, it's still like over 100, maybe peaking at 200. But I'm hoping that once they have 100 megahertz on air, the story ends up becoming something totally different.
Yeah, but Verizon was never the city carrier. They were never the city carrier. Like,
Mm,
Up until what year, Dennis?
I don't think Verizon's been the city carrier in my opinion since like 2013.
Wow.
I thought you were gonna say 2005.
No, like I mean that sincerely. Like the last time I thought of Verizon, like the only reason why up until about 2013 is because that's when because they were first LT. But like as soon as the other carriers started deploying LT, they were no longer the city carrier because every other carrier had more LT spectrum, and
Yeah,
every
but
other
to me it was never about just the spectrum. Like if I dissect like the Cleveland market, for example, Verizon, their strength has been the density. It's a macro every mile and it's small cells in between. So it's their cell splitting that really kept their network afloat till they
yeah,
got C-band. It wasn't because of spectrum.
but Verizon didn't start doing all that the macro cell site splitting and the small cell densification. They didn't really start doing that until around 2016. It took them a little
Yeah,
bit into their LT build.
sure. Yeah, that's true.
So like,
But that's part of the equation. So to me, when I look at the time frame, I look at like the benchmark or the landmark you gave us with like 2013 and XLTE and stuff like that. To me, Verizon became the urban carrier because they focus so much on the metro core, because the complaints have been coming in. Verizon is unusable outside of metros. Like that's the loud minority saying, "Oh, I had to switch to T-Mobile. They're fast here now. They built sites." Or I joined on AT&T. Band 14 is everywhere. FirstNet, all these upgrades since 2018. To me, I think Verizon is more of an urban carrier until they get the rural stuff
But
upgraded.
Sneed, when
For me, the rural
XLT
carrier
came
became AT&T.
when XLT came out, they had meter data. So obviously people were not using the internet as much as they did now, because people at the time were kind of scared them getting charged for an extra $10 for an extra 2 gigabytes or whatever. Now they're like, you know what, use whatever you want, blah blah blah. And now like it's solely, I mean, it's congested, or you have the best of both worlds on ultra wideband if you can get it.
But the one thing Verizon did and they always were mindful of was the usage of the average consumer. They always had data plans, even when they were buckets, where the average typical user, they would treat that as the average bucket that they would allow. And when they moved to unlimited too, we saw the same trends. Like if you look at the average user now is approaching 20 gigs of data per month. It's
Hmm.
gone up like 20% every year for the last 10 years. So you just it's simple. You just do the math. If at one point the average user was 2 gigs, right? Then it was like, 2.3, 2.5, 3 gigs. Each year it increased that much. I mean, I remember when the first study came out and it said we've officially reached the average data user is at 10 gigs. I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. We were still on LTE. And I was like, well, 5G is going to be necessary when we go from 10 gig to 20 gig, and here we are.
I feel that the data usage could be higher, but the thing is that the carriers limit video to 480p or 1.5.
The only one that's limiting, okay, so all the carriers limit video on their entry level and limited plans, but the only one that is limiting video on LTE across the board is Verizon. T-Mobile and AT&T have both been able to cope, and T-Mobile hasn't had a video throttle in a long time.
But like I'm saying, like if you get the Essentials or Magenta or anything that's 40p, because even like sometimes I've heard people say that Magenta Max or the most expensive plan that you have to enable the HD or 4K, whatever it is, on those accounts, and a lot of the times these people don't know how to even do that, because most of the time they're upsold these plans and yet they don't know how to do none of that. I think the only time where they want to know how to mess with their account is when they're enabling the Netflix discount.
Well, I do have an update for you guys. I'm like 99.9% positive that Verizon is getting rid of the 720p thing. 1080p is probably going to be happening on the consumer side within the next few months.
Well, they did it on the unlimited, or they did it on the business side.
Yeah, exactly. So once they do it on the business side, 3 to 6 months, you see it on the consumer side. So I don't know if we're going to get like a new plan. I doubt it's going to be a plan launch, but there will be like a news update or something, like how we see like stuff like this. You know, it'll say customers who adopt the new My Plan, whatever, the plus, whatever they have, 1080p on all video, 4K, you know, ultra wideband, that sort of thing. So
they do that, they'll solve one of my biggest gripes I have with them.
yeah, once they do it on the business side, it always comes to the consumer side.
No. I'm just saying, if Verizon does that, though, it solves one of my biggest pain points that I've had with them.
You're not the only one, Dennis. People have mentioned this as a pain point, so you're definitely onto something.
Another thing is that today it was rumored that Disney Plus is possibly going to have another price hike.
What is it at right now, B?
It's like $6.
It's $6.99, and for the ad-free one, it's $11.
So what would the price hike go to? 13 and 9 or something?
I could see the ad-free. I mean, the ad-supported one go up by $1, and I could see the ad-free version go up by $2.
$2.
Wait, Disney Plus has an ad version? Are you sure?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
I'm just surprised because, like, I know I had the free one with Verizon because, like, whenever I look at there's just one tier option, $7.99. There's no ad version.
That is the ad version.
Oh,
or something like that. Yeah, it's $7.99 or $6.99.
Well, there's no other options when I log in. I only see the one. There's just plain old $7.99.
Well, the ad-free one is $10.99.
All right, guys, ready for the next one?
Yes.
Yeah, let's hit it.
AT&T has some new tech to improve the battery life, you know, the drain caused by 5G.
Interesting.
Right, very interesting. And it's probably going to be attached to iOS, aka the iPhone. Okay, so they seem to work really nicely together. AT&T, you know, the iPhone network and all that. It's got a history. They've got a pedigree of sorts. Anyways, 5G is a killer and just causes massive battery drain. Typically, when I test it, for example, I personally can identify at least a 10% difference. Meaning, like, even my iPhone 14 Pro Max, if I put it in LT for the whole day, I'll finish the day with like 40 or 45% battery left. The same typical usage the following day, I'll put it in 5G. I've got like 20 something, 29 maybe, right? 35 sometimes. It really just depends, but typically that the 5G, whether it's in standby or it's the aggregation of the carriers or it's just the CPU, whatever's going on, the modem having to work harder. I mean, you could feel it. There's heat, so there's a pull on the battery, right? So there's probably some hardware things that could be put into place that would improve it. But I think also for now, we have to start looking at features. We have to start looking at software to maybe curtail and get some of that drain to chill, right? So here's some of the 5G versus 4G LTE comparisons. Okay, so here's like your Exynos chips, and here's your Tensor comparison, for example. Like here's Tensor, right? The 5G 40%, right? The 4G LTE 29%. And we're talking about battery drain, right? So a pretty sizable difference for like the example, the Google Pixel, 11% difference. The Google Pixel 6, and then for the 7, it's 10%. So even in one generation, it went from 11% to 10% difference in drain. It's very minimal. All right, now when you get to the Snapdragon piece, you're going from 41% on 5G to 32%, right? So that's a 9% difference. They improved it quite a bit in the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, going from 31% on 5G to 25% drain on 4G LTE. So actually the Snapdragon situation, the best in the class, but still a sizable difference, a measurable difference between 5G drain and LTE drain. So what AT&T is working on is these new features such as inactive state, maximum MIMO layer reduction, some of the other things. There were some thermal management capabilities, what's known as 5G reduced capability or RedCap. I see this inactive mode, wake up signal. These are all ways that they plan on reducing the battery drain. And the thing about battery drain is you're going to feel the heat on the phone. It's going to degrade the battery. You're charging it more. You're discharging it more. And, that's the longevity. That affects the capacity. So, like, it's like 6 months of usage and you're down to 90% battery health, right? It shouldn't drain that fast. It shouldn't be reduced that quickly. But when asked about the same questions about these types of features were asked about T-Mobile and Verizon, they had no response. So AT&T disclosed that they were working on these features with the iPhone. Verizon had no response or has nothing going on, or T-Mobile has no response or they have nothing going on. So if you're looking for the next generation of 5G battery health support, it's coming from AT&T and the iPhone.
Well, AT&T is the iPhone network.
Yeah, totally. Let me get Brandon in this, man. What's your take on this, B? I know you have an iPhone 12, so you've been using 5G, and I know you've been experimenting, switching, and manually going to LTE and such. Where are you at with these things?
I think it's a really good thing. I know that AT&T most of the time, AT&T customers are mainly on LTE, which is basically, I'm sorry, 5GE, and most of the time they're probably never. Most of the time they're probably going to always be on 5GE and stuff like that. But I've noticed that when I'm on Plus, that it literally blows away the battery. And I know that you've mentioned that when you enable standalone, it really blows the battery even more. So I'm hoping that whatever AT&T is working on the lab, that it ends up being good, because it's literally blowing up these batteries. And I'm hoping T-Mobile ends up doing the same thing too.
I had a T-Mobile SIM in my Google Pixel 7, and I don't know, if I had the phone just sitting on the desk, not even used for 3 hours, I'd see 25% drain. So that inactive, whatever that feature is going to be, that's going to be huge for situations like that. Even in the iPhone, the T-Mobile SA sometimes connects. God, man, I'll see a 10 or 20% drain, just from watching 5-10 minutes of YouTube TV. And I feel the heat coming off the phone. So there's pull and there's drag. Big shout out to Kevin. Thanks for the super sticker, bud. Appreciate you.
Yeah, these phones literally become mini heaters.
I remember when it was the iPhone 12, the 12 Pro specifically that I had. That thing was always hot. And when I sold the phone, the battery health was at like 85%. And it was a problem in the sale of the phone. Like the person who bought it for me is like, hey, I kind of want to give you less money because this battery is going to need to be replaced soon. And he's not wrong, actually. You actually should replace it once it gets down to about 80% because it's a sizable amount of capacity loss. And it's not a Max phone, right? So it's the regular version. So it's a smaller battery. That phone really didn't make it through a day once it got down to 85% battery life. I use my phones heavy. So that by dinner, you're down to like 11%.
I mean, Sneed,
not going to make it.
When I had the 12 Pro Max, back then I was still daily driving an Android phone, so I didn't even use that phone heavy. That thing, when I got done with it for trading, was already down to 85% as well. I mean, it was that phone was real bad. In fact, it would get so hot it would just disconnect from mmWave. I remember. Now the 13 was a lot better. The 13 and the 13 Pro Max were a lot better from a 5G connectivity standpoint, and then the 14 has been pretty solid too. But I'm really curious about what AT&T specifically is going to be doing on like the network side of things, because it's to my understanding that a lot of this stuff is determined by the device itself, right? Like whether or not it decides to stay like actively connected to, say, like ultra wideband, for example, right? Like we've seen this on iPhones, right? Where and Samsung's too, when Samsung pushed out an update on the S22s, where if you're not using an active data session, it'll disconnect from the UW. It'll disconnect from C-band, right?
I've noticed that when I like turn on the phone, it'll just say like 5G, and then on the pull, the ultra wideband kicks on, or the UC or whatever.
Yeah, but if you actually look at the service mode too, like in real time, you'll notice the phone will actually fall back just to LTE. Like it'll show the 5G icon, but it'll actually be connected to LTE until you actually have a data session going.
And that's supposed to help the battery life a little bit, but it's clearly not enough. And our batteries are not getting sizably bigger.
No,
and the batteries are only getting more taxing and demanding. We're getting more bandwidth. Millimeter wave is going to become more prevalent. And dude, that's a lot of bandwidth. And by the way, man, there is no harder pull on a battery than any type of data transfers with millimeter wave. It produces heat. You could feel it. And yeah, you finish the work faster. Like, let's say I had to download a game.
Yeah.
I want to do it over millimeter wave because I could download that game in 5 seconds. Even something that's like, what is it? The Call of Duty game is like 3 gigs.
Yeah.
I could download Call of Duty in a few seconds on millimeter wave. So like per second of efficiency, yeah, that task is going to produce a lot of heat in that 3 seconds, but it stops producing heat after 3 seconds. Right? So we got to start looking at these connections as, well, wouldn't it be wiser to make the device just not have to run as much?
Yeah.
As opposed to having it chugging along at a slower rate, but chugging along for longer. You know?
Yeah, I'm wondering what these types of changes will do though, as far as like the pass notification, because some things require real time, like connections all the time, but use very little data. I'm wondering how AT&T is going to balance that. But I'm also wondering if part of me wonders if part of the reason why 5G is having such a battery drain just comes down to density. Like, if you remember, right, like back in the early days of LTE, right, we suffered from the same problems. And then as the build-outs got deployed and fleshed out and a few generations went by with some efficiencies from SoC improvements, we saw LTE battery life get to be as good as 3G. In fact, better than 3G, right, once LTE got fully fleshed out. I wonder if it's the same case with 5G, right? Like, because, like, the only reason why your phone's heating up more is because it's having to strain harder to connect to the mid-band frequencies. They're not as strong. They don't reach as far as the low band, right? They're not being, they have to, your phone's basically screaming at the tower, like, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if this is just a density problem. Like, will this just solve itself as density gets better? As RF gets better?
So the signal strength matters.
Yeah.
It's definitely a factor. Probably even more so on the uplink.
Yeah.
Right? And, yeah, that could be helped with power levels and the density, because you could reduce power levels when the sites are closer. That was the thing about 3G. A lot of people don't know this, but everybody was like, oh, 3G was great, man. It was so much better than LTE. Well, not really. The signal on 4G and LTE is cleaner, right? And the scheduling and the timing is actually better. But what 3G had that 4G LTE didn't have, 3G had insane amounts of power. like in terms of the rules that the FCC put in place, they allowed 3G to be blasted.
Yes.
Because the cell grids were weak, right? 4G LTE brought the cell split phenomenon, where it was like, okay, we've got a 3G tower site here. 5 miles away is the next 3G tower site. Let's put one in between and let's improve the signal quality. But that's when LTE came into play. And then we started to see like 4G LTE radios going up and antennas. And we're like, oh, this is great too. So the answer to our signal quality issues is not power. We actually should be reducing power. We should be densifying. So
Yeah.
I love your point, Dennis. I think that helps our experiences out to the point where if your cells are in a more, more judicious placement, you know, you got a tower site every mile, you're golden. You're always going to be on midband, but the RSRP, the SINR, all those values that make a signal clean and strong, they're all within those parameters. Low band should be a situation for calling, texting when you're indoors, right? In a lower level, right? Everybody should have access to midband sitting on their couch, on their main level and on their second floor. But that's not the case. We know how the carriers roll, right? They always do the ROI investigation. How much does it cost to build the site? Is it realistic? Do we have this budget in this market? The answer is no. They got a tower site every 4 or 5 miles. This is what you're working with.
You know, I got a hot take. This is a little bit of socialist Dennis coming in here, but I really think the government should get into the cell phone tower game. They should literally just buy up like 100,000 locations for cell towers to put up like, you know, emergency gear and stuff like that for so like local fire departments and stuff like that, and lease off space to the carriers to get some extra tax revenue for like very, very, very cheap rates. I don't know what it costs to put up gear on a cell site per month, but I'm just using fictitious numbers. Let's just say that the average Crown Castle is charging $2,000 to put up a Crown, you know, a macro gear, which I know is probably way lower than what they actually charge, but let's just say that's what it is.
Okay.
And the government should come in and just say, hey, if you build out your networks in these underserved areas or densify here, we'll let you put your equipment up for $500. Just make it nice and cheap, and it's extra tax revenue for the government.
I mean, the carriers ain't going to object to that, Dennis. In a perfect world, I mean, they would definitely.
But I'm saying citizens
man.
should be down for it too, right? Extra competition, extra connectivity, and extra tax dollars from the carriers.
Dennis, what about the FCC? They already make our lives living hell.
What FCC? What department's that? They haven't done jack shit. Did they exist?
Exactly. That's our point.
They got their spectrum authority stripped of them.
What authority?
They had one before, apparently.
Last time I checked, the FAA was the one that dictated what spectrum
FAA was daddy. That's right.
Yeah.
I really wonder what I wonder the iPhone 15 this year, like if they'll do anything with the battery as far as like with 5G goes or anything like that. I mean,
I heard USB-C was coming. I heard USB-C was coming to the iPhone 15, which if that's
I think that's the thing. Yeah.
Which that's the case, I'm going to be jazzed. You know I'm going to be upgrading. Have one.
Yeah, you can charge your Chromebook and your iPhone at the same time.
I mean, dog, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be a little sad to upgrade because I actually do have a lot of lightning cables now, but I'd still like to have USB-C in my life. Just the one cable.
Well, do you plan on keeping your iPhone 13 beyond next year?
14 Pro Max.
Oh, okay. So are you going to keep it or are you going to trade it in?
I'd probably use it as a trade-in.
See, I'm keeping my 14 Pro Max.
Why?
And I'm going to still get a 15 Pro Max.
Why?
Bro, the iPhone video recording is very, very good. And I need to have an extra iOS device. So, and you know, that's the one thing about my channel when it comes to creating content, when I speed test and I make videos, some people want to see their phone. And some people have last year's phone. I've kind of learned that. Yeah. Like people are always like, people have asked me in comments of my content, can you keep your old phones and just test them along with your new stuff too? And I'm just like, okay, but that's expensive.
Can someone pay me for the difference?
Exactly. Because I can sell the last year's model.
Oh, you know what I'll do?
Some of the money towards the new one.
You know what I'll do? I'll use my iPhone. I still have an iPhone 12. So I have an iPhone 12 Pro Max, a 13 Pro Max, and the 14 Pro Max. I'll use the 12 Pro Max as the trade-in. Screw the 12 Pro Max. Let's trade that in. I think I have a 12 Pro Max, or is that the 13? Wait, did I trade in it? No, I have a 12. Yeah, I'll trade in the 12 Pro Max. There we go. I'll trade in the 12 Pro Max. I'll do the Best Buy deal. But yeah, no, I definitely... Yeah, what?
Or do you trade your phones with AT&T, or do you go to the
Fuck no.
carriers or Apple?
Trading it with AT&T where it's going to be carrier locked for 3 years? No.
Oh, so you like what T-Mobile did with the whole, that British dude with
No,
all
what
his
I what
commercials?
here's what I do, okay? I go to Best Buy. I do the trade-in deal there. I do it on T-Mobile, and then I call T-Mobile immediately afterwards and ask them to unlock it for me, and they do that. And so far, it's worked every time. Even though
Yeah,
it
but
gets
Dennis, you don't have the Go 5G Plus plan, so you're not going to get the best trade-in deals.
well, then I'll do it with. I got Verizon. I'll do it with. I have a Verizon line now, Sneed. I'll do it with Verizon. There you go.
Hey, can I have an update? How are things going, man?
With Verizon, with the Verizon postpaid line.
With your account, with your line, with the network experience, talk to me about that, man.
I mean, the account's fine. I'm paying $60. Very fair. It's Verizon. Look, I use it mainly for calling and texting, and calling is calling's always good. I don't use it for data. The data's not
AT&T, right? You still the goat of all goats?
I mean, no. I mean, honestly, like, I don't even have a need to use my AT&T line for T-Mobile's. I mean this, Sneak. T-Mobile's really good for data. Remember, I have no reason not to just use my I already use my T-Mobile line for calling and texting for personal stuff, right? Like, that. That's the one you always call me on. And
Right.
and as far as data switching goes, like, I have data switching turned on, but everywhere I'm going, like, T-Mobile's doing good. Like, okay, look, perfect case in point example. Okay, last week I had to go down to UPMC Presbyterian. You know where that is located, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to go down to the hospital. I had a cyst, and it got infected. I had to get checked out, got it drained, got the antibiotics, etc., etc. But anyway, the point of this story is that I was down in, like, literally downtown Pittsburgh, UPMC Presbyterian, and I texted you when I was in the hospital too. I was like, Jesus, T-Mobile was really good. I sent you the screenshots, remember? I sent you screenshots when I was in the hospital, but T-Mobile used to suck at the hospital, okay? They used to be terrible there. T-Mobile's upgraded and their speeds were insane. I sent you the text if you still have it. I commented about the latency being really good.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Verizon, in that same location, which, mind you, downtown, like around that area, Verizon's supposed to have mmWave. Verizon was honestly pretty garbage inside the actual hospital. Verizon had very poor service. I'm talking about inside the hospital building. Very poor service. My T-Mobile was
like,
legit.
if you walked in, a call would drop or something?
I mean, I wasn't trying to place any calls. I was just talking about data connectivity. But the data,
so if you're watching something, it would start buffering?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really watching anything. I was just, like, loading Reddit. But
okay, gotcha. Oh, so it got slow. You felt it. You noticed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, like, T-Mobile was honestly flawless. They used to be the worst at the hospital. Now they're, like, honestly the best. And then AT&T, obviously, is AT&T. And then Verizon is... I mean, look, people are going to like what they like. Verizon's okay, but, like, Verizon's gotten to the point where I feel like they're not the best at anything. Like, they're just kind of like... They're there. They exist. If you got a good price on them, that's great. They're not going to be my first choice, though. Like, I mean, I know that's different for you, Sneed, out in Ohio, but, like, they're not going to be my first choice. Like, when I think of when I think of best coverage, I think of AT&T. When I think of calls, like call quality, I have a really good time on call quality with AT&T. If I think of capacity and fastest speeds, I think of T-Mobile or AT&T. Like, AT&T is super fast on average across the board consistently, and then T-Mobile's got, like, the highest peak speeds in some places where I've seen even above, like, a gig now. So I don't know what Verizon's doing that's better. I mean, like, yeah, they got some spots where it's really fast. Yeah, they got a couple spots where there's mmWave. Yeah, calling's still good on them. They're solid. It's just they're not. There's nothing to get excited about.
So you see Verizon as Sprint now, or what?
I see. Well, I would not call them Sprint. Sprint was a failed experiment. I see Verizon. I see Verizon how I saw AT&T back in, like, 2014. That's what I see Verizon as. I think Verizon's AT&T back in, like, 2014, where they were confused and focused on entertainment acquisitions and didn't have FirstNet. But now AT&T's got FirstNet and is basically hopped up on government steroids and has deployed a network that's so capacitive and modernized and has exceeded Verizon in actual square miles of coverage. Like, that is a known fact. Like, AT&T is the new Verizon of this era. Like, they got the whole layer cake going. They got their low band, they got their mid band, they got a little bit of mmWave in places like Heinz Field and PNC Park. I mean, AT&T's cooking with gas, and then I see T-Mobile being like what Sprint was back in like the BlackBerry days when Sprint was actually good, except, actually good now in the modern day with 5G. I don't know.
So here's the interesting thing on your synopsis, right? Your summary, like the conclusion you're drawing about the networks and your usage and stuff, I don't discount people's opinions or people's experiences, I should say. They're valid because they're yours, and you spend your money on networks that you deem deserve that money. So I can't argue what you experience. It's valid. But when we look at the national reports, nothing of what you said is proven by the data.
Sure.
So AT&T, their strength right now is the state reports en route. They are thriving. A majority of states go on the state level to AT&T. Metros, they have some, but they typically trail Verizon. And then, like from Open Signal, AT&T is nowhere to be found in any of the awards. And then from JD Power, it's all Verizon. Even T-Mobile in Open Signal thrives in some quality metrics, thrives in the download speed metrics. AT&T is really the absent one when it comes to these testing firms. Like, you could argue that the state testing for route is valuable. I think it is. I think the state, because it tells you if I travel around the state and I go to all these major markets where I live, I'm good with AT&T. I'm Gucci. It's the best one there. But when I look at route and I see the stranglehold that Verizon has, and I see the improvements that T-Mobile is making, they're still working on calling. It's still not great, but it's improved, and they're starting to share wins. And then if I look at Open Signal, it's dominated by Verizon and T-Mobile. It's not AT&T. So I think we have to keep national perspective in this. Is that the reports don't draw the same conclusions you do, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, look, my stuff's not statistical, and I'm not testing as hard as like I used to when I was doing best phone plans. I'm just using my phone. Like, I'm literally just using my phone, and if you told me, like, Sneed, if you said, Dennis, you have to use Verizon, I have a gun up against your head, like, this is the carrier you have to use in Pittsburgh. Sure, I'll use it. It's okay. It's just okay. It's like a C plus B minus, like, it's passing school. But I'm getting an A plus report to AT&T. It always has been goated in Pittsburgh, especially when you get out of the city too. It's really good. And then T-Mobile, like I said, it is just some of their worst spots have been really well modernized. Duquesne University is another spot that T-Mobile really struggled in. It used to be really congested down there. I remember. I was down there for a previous employer, handing out some stuff on the campus that I think I told you about behind the scenes at one point. T-Mobile was awful. I'm talking like 1 meg per second in like Duquesne's parking garage. Now they're getting like 700 down there. UC just really well deployed, really well upgraded, super low latency. I still run speed tests here and there, but it's not like the crazy kind of stuff where I was carrying like 4 phones around to be like doing active service modes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so and like I said, Dennis, I don't discount anyone's experiences because that's how people purchase, right? You're not going to pay to get worse network access. You're always going to pay to get the best you can, right? Everybody's going to maximize their dollars.
I'm paying for every network regardless, but
yeah, we're a little bit different, right?
Different story. But if I had to, let's just say I lost my job and I had to start cutting back, Verizon would be the first one I would cut.
AT&T would be the keeper.
AT&T would be, well, let's keep it real. I've said this before, but like, it's my dad's plan. I'm only paying like $10 for the AT&T line. So like, I like, realistically speaking, the way this would actually break down is like the T-Mobile account with the 4 lines, even with the free lines, would cut down to 1 line. The AT&T would obviously stay, and I would just go back to paying for that. Like that would be the combo. And then if I really had to cancel the T-Mobile account, which I really wouldn't want to do because the insider discount, I'd probably sell a kidney first. But if I really had to, if I really had to let it go, then I would just bring the T-Mobile line over to the AT&T account and call it a day.
All right, tech guy tagged me here. Let's see what he's got to say. He said, Verizon's postpaid net losses show customers are not happy with the network, even though independent testing ranks them the best. So I've run surveys on my channel. I've run polls. I've looked at the Recon Analytics data. I mean, we've looked at a lot of stuff. We can't conclude based on the data that this statement is true. You know, I think what's going on here is I think the competitors offer a better value in some instances, better pricing in some instances, and just an overall package. People are starting to shop smarter, right? They're not just sitting around and saying, you know, I got to pay the most in order to get a good network. Well, they're finding out that there are competitors out there who will give you a little bit more for the same amount of money, or will give you similar network experience for less money, like in the case of big cable. So to me, I think your statement is a little bit presumptuous. You're presuming that people are leaving because of the network, but the numbers don't show it, and the reasons aren't really there. I'm sure some people leave because the network isn't as promised, but what type of number are we going to attach to it? Are you going to tell me 1% of customers leave Verizon because of the network? Because that would amass to 1.5 million customers. 1%. That's
Steve,
1.5 million, but it's 1%. So it's not statistically significant.
Steve, would you agree with me really quickly? Would you agree with me that the cellular providers, at least in our markets respectively, have gotten to the point where there isn't really like a noticeable difference? Like, i.e., like what I mean by this is like, you've heard me talk about home internet, right? How I put a really high quality premium on like a wired connection, like a Comcast cable connection or my Verizon Fios, right? Because there's a very clear, noticeable use case difference, right? There's nothing that Verizon is doing right now that is providing a distinguishable, noticeable difference in your networking experience, right? Like all the carriers in our markets, both yours and mine, are generally speaking going to let you load up Reddit. It might be a couple seconds difference between the two, but it's not stopping you from loading Reddit, right? All of them are going to let you play YouTube. All of them are going to play Spotify. All of them are going to play Google Maps, et cetera, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, like, you know, when you ask me, like, what are my thoughts on Verizon, I have to look at the other stuff. Do I like my plan? Well, no, I don't like 720p video caps. Do I like my price? I think it's a fair price for one line. Absolutely. It's very fair. $60 is very reasonable. Pricing is not the problem. Do I like Verizon's customer service? No, I absolutely loathe them. Do I like doing business with Verizon? No, every time I do business with Verizon, I feel like I got bent over the barrel. So, like, these are the impressions that I have when I think of Verizon. Like, and so it skews my perspective maybe a little bit, but I'm also open about my bias. I hate Verizon as a company. Like, they're a bad company to their customers, and they don't show any effort to change it. Like, in the same way that I get mad at T-Mobile for the next story that we're about to talk about with security, and other problems with T-Mobile and how their customer service is going downhill.
Okay.
So you named like a lot of other factors.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly valid, but we wouldn't say it's because of the network.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. When someone says definitively, with certainty, they're leaving because of the network, there has to be fact. There has to be data or evidence of that. I just don't like speculation. I know that there are people who have left because of the network. I'm saying statistically, I think there's other reasons that are more predominantly the reason. For example,
it's
pricing and value.
It's price and emotion. How do they feel about the brand? If the customer feels like they're getting bent over, even if they're getting the best deal in the world, let's just say they were literally getting the service for free. If they felt like they were getting taken advantage of emotionally, that's going to impact how they view that perspective of that interaction, right?
Hey, this one's from Nathan. Raging Dusty wants me to read it. My dad is heading to south side of Columbus. How is AT&T or T-Mobile there? He'll be roaming as a U.S. Cellular customer. Well, if he's a U.S. Cellular customer, wouldn't it be roaming on Verizon?
No, it'd be T-Mobile, right?
U.S. Cellular?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they roam on T-Mobile.
Oh. Okay, well, AT&T is very good in Columbus. T-Mobile is very good and fast in Columbus. And they've upgraded a ton there, too. They have millimeter wave. They got tons of C-band. All the carriers are really good in Columbus. I was there last year. I went to COSI, me and the family, and it was great. There was millimeter wave all over the place. They were just doing C-band at the time, so I'm sure it's much more mature. Oh, it roams on AT&T. Yeah, AT&T was great in Columbus when I was there, and that was before 5G Plus. So, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great. They're roaming both AT&T and T-Mobile. It varies. Oh, I always thought U.S. Cellular was Verizon for some reason. All right, well,
I always thought they were T-Mobile, so...
yeah, you'll enjoy the experience. T-Mobile's very good in Columbus, and so is AT&T. Roams AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, but you can force it on Verizon if needed. Okay, so network select. Thanks, Los. Appreciate it. So by default, it's going to be AT&T and T-Mobile then.
Hey, Dennis, so the question of the century
9 is your home improvement superstore. Right now, get 10% off a large selection of name brand composite decking, and it's all...
I can get 10% off my decking. Go ahead, Brandon.
So the question of the century is, are you a stanky thong?
Stanky thong? I mean, I'm a very satisfied, happy, and loyal AT&T subscriber with not an intention in my mind of ever considering leaving them. So, does that make me a stanky thong?
I guess.
I mean, my family was born in AT&T blood. My dad's been with them since 1960. Okay, we're an AT&T household. Okay, no, I'm just messing around a little bit. It's getting late, but Steve, let's get into this story, man.
All right, last story of the day. Former T-Mobile employee arrested, allegedly swapping SIM cards and selling them to scammers. This has gone to court. Criminal court documents say that the store's manager found a spreadsheet of the alleged incidents the cards were stolen from customers' phones. This occurred in New Orleans, and some kind of like a SIM card heist. 21-year-old Tamber Blackmore, 32 counts of access device fraud, 32 counts of identity theft. And the store was located on 5365 Chapatulas Street. I don't even know. This dates back to May 21st to July 11th, I guess was the window of where the spreadsheet indicated. $32,000 bond set at the magistrate court. The store manager handed over the spreadsheet. Surveillance video of Blackmore allegedly using a store tablet to commit the fraud to investigators. What the hell was this guy thinking? Using store devices to even do it on? Like, he didn't even give a damn. Yeah, people are just terrible, man. So people's identities were stolen, SIM cards hijacked, probably accounts completely compromised. It's pretty bad, bro.
What I don't understand is that this happens all the time to T-Mobile. Why can't they think of a way to just implement a system that requires the customer to take an action before a SIM swap can be processed? It's not that complicated. Just
you know what Verizon does, Dennis?
Sends a text to the old phone on the app.
Oh, even better. If you need to do something with a SIM card, Verizon literally points you to a kiosk on the other side of the store, and they say, follow the prompts on the screen. And you have to put in all your security codes, your passwords, all the numbers, the sending of the text, that whole thing. They want their employees nowhere near the transaction.
But, like, listen, let's just start with baby steps, right? First step that would solve 99% of the problems. 99% of the problems. Baby steps, right? Because T-Mobile's proven they're incompetent when it comes to security, right? Let's just start with baby steps. Baby steps. Before a SIM swap can take place, a text message should have to be sent to the phone or a phone on the account where they have to first say, like, yes, they approve to the SIM swap. Otherwise, nothing happens. It's not that hard. It's really not. And I really wish T-Mobile would do this because any company is susceptible to these types of things. Any company will have bad apples that are willing to be bribed for some money, especially if you're not paying your employees well, which we also know that T-Mobile is not paying their retail employees well, especially when it comes to their retail partners. They're paying below what Verizon and AT&T pay respectively, and they're also paying worse than Comcast and others. So extra systems should be put in place, additional training should be put in place, extra money should be put in place, and extra thorough background check should be put in place when handling private data.
We got a new guest, dog.
Wait, hold on. Dennis, people would be locked out of their account if they are a single line account and they do not have access to the old phone/SIM card. Well, in that case, you would have a workaround where it would be driver's license needs to be scanned in store, and some form of pass pin needs to be entered on the account. And if not tough, they'll have to go old school and scan some file or something to be scanned. I don't know. Like, you can think of workarounds, but I'd rather take that chance than end up being in one of these situations.
What's up, we've seen Carlos's thing get SIM swapped live probably 3 times.
It's crazy, bro.
And let's put it this way. Let's just put it this way with T-Mobile. I remember when I worked there, bro. If I wanted to, I could change the account name to whoever I wanted, and it would be attached to your social.
Damn.
That's how much access a regular rep has.
That's insane, dude. Dude, I know for a fact, bro, at Comcast, they got really strict with their employees about name changes because of a big scandal where employees would be putting in profane things to customers on their accounts. So they just lock all that out, dude. Name changes, social changes, all that stuff has to require a supervisor.
Not at T-Mobile.
Yeah, there's stuff for them to fix.
You know what's funny at T-Mobile too? So if I know somebody's name, I can search and I know what state you're from. I can go in there and I can search Dennis blah blah blah, Pennsylvania, and it'll pop up all your names that have an account with T-Mobile in Pennsylvania.
Well, that's not new. Most customer service reps can search up accounts.
Yeah, but a level
for sorting
one
and stuff,
employee
right?
can. A level 1 employee can access that, and then they
that's not new, Carlos. Like, if you work sales, right? Like, it's important to be able to pull up old accounts to check for bad debt and stuff like that.
When I worked at Verizon, you couldn't do that. Once you punch in the social, it'll pop up saying you owe them money. Once the customer popped in their social, on the tablet, it would automatically say you owe us this much money. We can't, activate you.
Oh, no, man. I don't know. All I know is this is bad, and every time I see this, it makes me very discouraged and disheartened that T-Mobile's not learning from their mistakes, and it's really frustrating. In the same way that it's frustrating Verizon doesn't improve their customer service, it's really frustrating that T-Mobile is being lacking on their security.
Oh, well.
It sucks because their network is getting better, man. They just need to improve their actual business operations.
Until the damn courts decide to do stuff about it and stop giving only $32,000 bail for something like that, then they're not going to care. The carriers don't care. At the end of the day, they want the fraud to happen. You guys don't know that?
They have no liability. They have no liability.
It's not that. It's because they have insurance, bro. They make more money on the insurance.
Again, Carlos, they don't have any liability. There's no trouble for them. There's no punishment. What's the repercussions?
Not even a slap on the wrist, even.
Nothing.
1, they don't get in trouble, and 2, when the fraud happens, guess what? Let's say they pulled out 10 phones. The insurance company's going to pay them for 30 phones because they pay them double, and then or double or triple, and then plus they pay the hourly of the employee triple. So at the end of the day, they're winning. So why the hell do they care if it continues happening? They don't give a damn. They let it happen. So until the carriers actually do something about it, it will always happen. Always, always, always.
Well, that's the reason why I don't like to call into T-Mobile. Hey, where's this at? The zoo?
Yeah, man. We were feeding giraffes lettuce. And Yasmin was terrified. She literally jumped in my arms, dude, and hid behind that thing. She was like, ah!
How old is this picture?
Dude, maybe 4 years ago.
I was gonna say it has to be old, man, because I could tell just by like how you look at it.
It might have been like 2019, maybe summer of 19. Yeah. Let me see if I got any other cool ones. Let me see.
It's crazy how you changed, bro. You look like legit in that picture, bro. You look like you could pass for like 22.
Well, thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying you look grown. You look grown now, dude.
Yeah, man. Getting old, dog.
You're not
What do you
even
think of
that
this
old.
one?
You just look grown. It's all those hours at the bakery, man. You need to get some good employees so you can take some time off, man. It's kind of
Yeah, I'm
like
trying to get out to Vegas this August, man.
I was gonna say it's kind of like whenever people go into the White House, bro. You know how like presidents seem to age like 100 years when it's in the White House. That's you at the bakery, man. You're working too many hours, dog. You need vacation.
I think the hard part also is just getting up every morning at 5 a.m. You know, like if I got up every morning at 7, I feel like it would be a different world for me. You know,
Well, you're
you'd be
the
more
owner.
rested.
You're the owner, man. Do it. Just
Yeah, but
make the
stuff
bakery
doesn't
open.
get, but stuff doesn't get done, man.
Make
You know,
the
it doesn't
bakery
get
open
done right.
later. Make the bakery open later.
Yeah, but it's not just the bakery though. Even my 9 to 5, you know, well, it's not even a 9 to 5, bro. I'm getting up, 5:30 to get up and prep my lessons and get ready for work. My drive to work is 45 minutes.
Wait,
So
what?
that's an hour. Yeah, my drive to work is 45 minutes.
Oh my god,
Bro,
Yeah, it sucks.
bro, get a house closer to work, dog.
You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
I live like 17 miles from work, but I literally there's no freeway. There's no freeway option. So I'm going through all these lights. I'm getting stuck behind buses, school buses that are stopping and picking up kids, and garbage trucks, and and traffic jams and patterns and freeway off ramps and all this. I got all that, dude. It takes me forever to get to work. My friend lives 31 miles from work, and he beats me by 10 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to tell you, dude. That's funny because when I was commuting from my parents' house to like my first real time job, it was like a good 30 or so, like 28 miles away, but it only took me like 30 minutes because most of the trip was me just flooring on 376.
Yeah, see, if you got freeway, you can log 10 miles in 5 minutes.
I mean, I don't know about all that, but yeah.
But you get what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
like a fast, like you literally like listen to a couple of songs and you're off the freeway. You literally just it was it. And if it's a podcast, you listen to half of it.
Well,
You're
Steve,
there.
you haven't seen 376 in rush hour.
How fast does it move?
Not fast.
Oh shit! So yeah, the SMT podcast comes in handy.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, for any of my fellow Pittsburghers that know, getting into Pittsburgh and getting out of Pittsburgh, if you're hitting it during rush hour, is a miserable experience. It slows down quick.
Yo, this is a great question. No sleep. If no sleep, because all of that takes priority over sleep.
Nah. Here's the real answer. AI. Right now, what we're talking to is an AI. Sneed is currently dreaming. He's uploaded his brain to the cloud. It's running off a 5G millimeter wave from Hans Vestberg. He wasn't telling lies, and all being processed by cloud computing and AI.
Pretty soon, you guys are going to be dealing with AI Sneed on the SMT podcast.
I
It's
mean,
just gonna
hey,
be a placeholder.
did you see iOS 17 with the personal voice and accessibility from MKBHD's video?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can record your voice now and have like a personalized voice, like type and stuff, and it'll talk for you.
This is what it's come to, Dennis.
No, thank you.
I mean, they already got my fingerprints, my eye scan, and everything else because of the TSA pre-check. Sneed, did I tell you that I got an Amex Platinum card?
Congratulations are in order.
Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah, man. I got a bougie card.
Yeah, you bad and bougie. It's heavy.
It's heavy, man. It's heavy and it's metal. It's my first metal credit card. Did I tell you I'm going to the Netherlands?
You've arrived, my friend.
Did I tell you I'm going to Amsterdam?
I remember you were planning a trip, but I vaguely remember Japan.
It was Japan for a month, but I had to pull back on that one. Instead, I'm going to Amsterdam.
All right, man. The cafes, from what I hear, are the thing to do.
Yes, 2 weeks in Amsterdam. Gonna be chillaxing, riding the bikes, the bicycles, and whatever else they do.
He said no to that, Sneed. We want a real boy. They don't want the AI Sneed, bro. Oh, damn.
Sneed, I haven't heard a fun fact. We've been talking wireless, but honestly, man, we're winding down the show on a weekend. Why don't you give the fam, the community, a little update just on life? How's life, man? I feel like no one's asked you that in a while.
Dude, life's busy, man. Life is busy. We've got some family on vacation, so putting in extra hours at the bakery. So that's had me busy. Just doing some stuff with the fam, day-to-day stuff. Like last week, for example, I convinced, or earlier this week, I convinced Yasmin to go do wind sprints with me on a hill. So we packed up a cooler. We went to a park where there's a giant hill. And she's like, I want to be faster. So I said, let's go. And I took her to the hill, and we literally did like 5, 6, 7 wind sprints up this giant hill. And poor thing, man, she's tough. She was committed. She wanted to do, like, she did 5 full ones, and then on like the 6th one, she was like 3/4 of the way. I pushed her like a freaking train. I was like, you're gonna finish it out. It was fun to see her kind of push herself. And then she was exhausted. I did a couple more, but then we like played at the park. Right. So we're doing some of that, and we're spending more time. She wants me to do TikToks with her, these dances and stuff. She's trying to teach me how to do some of these things. Obviously, we got the baby, so that's kind of.
I was going to ask about that. I was going to say last time we talked, I know you said you're working on a second kid. So
yeah,
you've had it.
Yeah. The baby's a few months old, and
so that's why you got no sleep now. I understand.
And it's so satisfying and gratifying and fulfilling.
Now,
I'm watching her grow up day to day. It's like, I remember these things with Yasmin.
Yeah.
But now I'm seeing like the round 2 version, and it's different. It's the same like landmarks, but it's happening at different times and in different ways. And I get to watch the evolution of a human. And it's mine, right? Like I made this,
that.
Yeah. So that's been really fun, and I've always loved, fatherhood and being a dad, and it's been great.
You gonna go for round 3, or is that gonna be the last one?
It's crazy, man. I don't know if it's gonna be up to me, dog. I really don't, bro. Because if it's up to me, it's a yes. If it's me, it's a yes. But now's not the time to have that conversation with the old lady.
I mean, honestly, keeping it a buck with you, man. If I ever do get a wife and we start talking about having kids, I would want to have them just back to back. Get them out the way. Let's get them all out of babyhood, because that's, in my opinion, that's the worst time to have a kid. Let's get them to the point when like they can kind of get like some independence, right? So they're all kind of growing up, going through school at the same time. Let's
you
just
want
get
them together? Yeah, absolutely.
Like at most a year apart, maybe 2 years. Well, I guess it has to be a year apart unless I'm finding some other person. But I guess.
Okay, so I'll give you some advice,
yeah.
Right? And this is just to anybody. I see nothing but trouble, obstacles, road bumps, difficulties the longer you wait. Right? It gets harder in every aspect, form, and fashion. Everybody makes a big deal about financials. It's not a problem. There's always going to be money. As long as you are employed, there is money. There's always going to be enough. People are or operating in fear of not being able to provide. It's not really an issue. I think the issue is people waiting and then regretting and then wanting, and then it's like all these other factors. So like, everybody wants to live their life in their 20s. Yes, live your life in your 20s, but these things can be done in that same time frame. People try to separate their life into phases. All of it can be together. Like, you can have a wife and a child and go on vacation. And you can go on vacation before the child. So it's you and your wife. Like, these things can all happen in your 20s. But people think you have to live a version of your life in your 20s, a version in your life in your 30s, and then the adult you is in your 40s. Bro, that's not how it works. What ends up happening, because I see this, my own personal friends who did this, it's all regret. Now, if you're hell-bent on not doing these things, then you're golden. You who cares, right? But like, if you have end game to like have children and family and stuff, waiting is an issue, because you can't get time back.
I mean, I'm 50. I mean, first off, let me just say something, Sneed. My dad didn't have me until he was like an old fart, dude. Like my half sister, dude, is literally like double my age, dog. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. Like my parents had me when they were old, is pretty old. Like Honestly, it's surprising I came out as healthy as I was, considering how old my mother was.
Well, God bless, man. Yeah, yeah.
But like, so like, I don't know about the whole weight thing. But honestly, I'm like 50-50 on the kid thing, man. Like, I'm still enjoying just having independence in the house. If I find a wife where I feel like I have stability and safety, you say money comes in, but honestly, let's keep it a buck. Dual income's pretty important. Having two parents is really helpful for splitting up the duties, right? Like, I wouldn't want to just be like a single dad in this thing, right? And I definitely wouldn't want to get into like a relationship and then have a whole divorce happen, because that makes things complicated when it comes to kids. But if it happens, if I get a wife, like if I was gonna have kids, like I'd want to have them back to back, like just get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
Get and two of them would be what I was. Two of them is what I'd be shooting for. Ideally, a boy and a girl.
In a perfect world, right? One
in
of
a perfect. Well, I mean, honestly, with the power of CRISPR and modern medicine, you could actually dictate a lot of stuff.
You can. Yeah, you can.
If you want to pay for it.
Sure.
Yeah, but
yeah, sure.
I mean, honestly, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, I'm like 36, don't get married or anything like that, but let's just say I end up getting loaded. I've even contemplated the idea of just like either adopting or like getting like a surrogate mother. Like, I've contemplated the idea. Cause,
so
like,
in your 30s, Dennis, as a guy, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? You're coming into your financial prime.
Yeah.
In your 30s and 40s. So honestly, I think for women, biologically speaking, it's a little different for children.
Yeah.
But for a guy, I mean, you could have two lives with respect to children, because I've seen men have 10 kids by the time they were 40 and have 10 more by the time they were 65. Like, it's insane. You hear these stories, but like that stuff happens because with men, it's just different. And that's a lot of financial responsibility. I'm not signing up for that, because it's hard to raise good kids in this world. Right?
I mean, the only
reason
reason
really
why
be in tune with that.
The only reason why I want any kids at all, I think part of it's because of my upbringing with like a Catholic background, Italian family. And like the other part of it is just because, like, you know, I'm working hard, accruing equity, but I got no one to pass it along to. Like, if I die, right, I don't want to go into the government. Like, I want to have someone to pass it along to.
Yeah, facts.
Otherwise, what's the point of being on the earth, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you build something when you're here, right? You do good deeds when you're here.
Someone to remember my legacy and take care of my tombstone.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I think for men to consider that future, of what they want to do, just always keep in mind, is this going to be easier now or soon? How hard is it going to be when I have to do it when I'm older? Because could you imagine moving your son into college and you're 75?
Here's what I'll say. It's not really a life thing, but I'll say this is probably the biggest factor. Do you own your house? Do you have a stable place of income? Personally, I think owning a house makes life a lot easier to be able to then consider the idea of having a kid. Because until you own a house, if you're dealing with rent instability and not knowing where you're going to live, it gets really hard to think about if you're going to have a kid, right? But if you can get a house, I feel like that's when you hit that milestone of, okay, now it's time to really think about raising a family. That's my opinion.
Yeah, big shout out to MS. Thank you for the super chat. He said, congratulations, Sneed, to your family. Fantastic advice. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Troy, let me discuss this here. So I had this conversation with a really good friend. I always try to give my friends the most insightful, true to heart advice I can. Only honesty, never sugarcoat anything. And we were talking about kids and the future and those types of things. Good men are needed now more than ever to raise good kids so they can become good men and good women. It is imperative that we start to look at having kids like a duty, because when kids don't have opportunities and like having good parents to raise them and show them right and wrong and teach them consequences and accountability and respect and self-respect and self-worth and hard work and goodness, all those things, good parents have to teach that to kids. If kids don't have that in this world, it's a necessity. We should be feeling a requirement to do that for the next generation, because my parents invested in me heavy in order for me to become who I became. Tons of time and special care. an explanation and an investment of money, right, in my future, like making sure that I was prepared to take on all of my days, putting me in good schools and giving me, what I needed. And sometimes what you need is not what you want, and teaching me those lessons. I feel it is my duty that my parents did for me, I must do for my children too. So, in my estimation, coming from a man who is almost 40 years old now, I'm just doing my job by having children and raising good children. Now, if I think that's where some people have fear. They're afraid as to whether or not they can raise good children. It's hard, it's challenging, it's difficult. They don't want the responsibility. It's an operation out of fear. Dennis, I'm telling you, when people have fear, it changes the way they think. Think about people's responses when they're scared. Run. Literally, that's people's response. When something is scary, intimidating, fear-driven, they run. So what are people running away from? Having kids.
I want to just say, though, I think a little bit of fear, like I think it's actually healthy to question if you're going to be a good dad. I think some of the best dads are the ones that question themselves, right?
I did, Dennis. I did. I did question that. The first thing I said when Yasmin was born, I really hope I can be a good dad. I just want to be a good dad. That's all I kept telling myself. And you don't always make the best decisions, but your heart's always in the right place, and you always get better and you do better. That sort of thing.
And as long as there's time, things can rip. I mean, Steve, we've had prior talks. My relationship with my father wasn't perfect at first, but we've gotten better, as I became an adult, right?
Yeah, that's signs of maturity. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I want to go back to the hard choice comment here. The world's getting more shitty to raise kids. I actually disagree with this. I think today's world, first off, people have not changed. People were always the way they were since the dawn of the birth of human civilization.
Nice.
Let's just make that clear.
I agree.
And I actually think today's world is a much better world to raise a kid in than any time in human history before. We have access to better modern medicine to help our kids. So issues before that would have been debilitating are now just minor inconveniences for a lot of them. We can treat them, right? We have access to quality education for our kids, right? Like, it wasn't that long ago where having literacy used to be a wealthy person's thing, right?
Yeah.
We have good food. I mean, I know there's bad food out there, but we have access to more good food and diverse food. I know it sucks that the news is always running negative stories, but that's what gets views. But the more important part is the fact that when things do go bad, we're actually drawing spotlight and having, granted, heated discussion on it, but we're discussing about some of these issues that just got ignored for a long time. And honestly, if you really do think the world is not the better place, participate in your local government. Inspire change. Remember that you're talking to other humans. A lot of times, I don't like talking about politics too often, but a lot of times we like to say that the other side is the enemy. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is that if we can just have a peaceful conversation, most people will be able to, at least, as long as they're reasonably intelligent, will be able to usually agree that there's a
reasonable.
Yes.
As long as they're reasonable.
Yes, that there is a problem. You might have discrepancies and differences on how to actually execute and solve that problem, but most people do want to put energy into solving most things. Like, there's malicious spirits out there. There's loud minorities that are driving other people to be a little bit more susceptible to their propaganda to do bad things, but most people want the best. We're all Americans. We're all part of this earth. And most people have common wants that are just innate to being human, right? Most people, given the opportunity, would love to raise a family if they had if the environmental conditions are right. If it's a safe environment that allows for it, and they're able to find a healthy partner to share a relationship with, then most people that are going to find a healthy partner are going to want to share and have a happy family. It expands across all kinds of cultures.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I don't think the world's bad. I actually think the world's good. I could tell you right now, my life and existence would be a miserable hell if I wasn't born in the modern day. It would be a miserable hell.
You know what I think is part of it, Dennis, is kind of what you were mentioning, is like in this era is the access to information, right? It's like a gift and a curse, because with that access of information, every device has a camera. so everything gets recorded, which means everything has media coverage, everything has glorification or infamy or whatever it is. Like it's all part of the equation. So some of that is in play. I think it's important, that people have the critical thinking skills to navigate the waters, though. The world can be a dumpster, but the world can have treasure within the dumpster. So you have to sift through everything to find your treasure.
Listen, I've found my people make fun of me for it. I've seen jokes before, but I mean this sincerely. My treasure, my humble safe space, my little piece of happiness, really is my house. I know this is gonna sound probably sad to some people, but when I look at my master bedroom and I see that queen size bed with my pillow, I am generally ecstatic and so happy to lay down. No, you're laughing, but Sneed, listen, growing up, man, I slept on a mattress that was like 50 years old. Okay, I didn't grow up well off. We got in a heated discussion about this before, but I didn't grow up well off. To see that I have a very comfortable queen size bed with a My Pillow that's lasted me 10 years that my aunt gave me. When I lay in that bed and get to have a peaceful, quiet night's sleep, I don't hear any bar fights. I'm in a safe place. I that's my little piece of happiness. That's my little safe spot at the end of my day. I get a peaceful rest. I love the fact that I have my internet. I know people laugh at me for that too, but no, I'm not joking.
No. I'm talking about. I remember the conversations about the water. Like I remember the buckets and all that. I do.
Yeah, like the internet's important. It's my communication to the world.
Sure.
I get to communicate with so many different people. Get to experience so much stuff through the internet. I know bad things happen on the internet, but like for me, it's good. And the fact that I have this safe house to just recharge when I'm done talking to people is also good. Life is good now that I have this little piece of thing, and it's not everybody's perfect piece of happiness in the world, but this is mine. Like, and this is what I love, and I'm very happy and glad that I could get to where I am. It took a little bit of luck, it took a bit of effort, but I'm here where I am, and I was able to carve out my little piece of happiness on this earth. And I believe that everybody can have the opportunity to carve out a little piece of happiness if we just give people a chance and a little bit of help, and remember that we're human, and just try to help out however we can, and try to do what's best for everyone, and not focus on some of the more BS stuff that gets hyperbolized or misconstrued in media. I really do think that the earth is a better place today than it was ever before.
Well, I can't disagree. You're not going to get a disagreement out of me, man. I totally agree with that. And, I chose a profession where I knew I'd be helping. I'd be making an impact. So I think education and teaching as an educator is a noble profession that I knew I would feel intrinsically rewarded if I could do it for 30 plus years. I mean, how many things can you honestly say you could do for 30 plus years? That's the job to have, right? And because you'll be helping people along the way, and I know that there's other jobs that pay more money, but that's what I had to do to find my occupational happiness. And for my personal life, it was same thing as you, Dennis, providing for my family, the same kind of like safe space and giving them all the things they could ever need, and try to give them most of what they want, within my means. And, I hustle and grind, and I got all this stuff going on, and I'm good with it. And I feel productive. I feel worth. What do you want in life, bro? But to feel worth, appreciated, worth, dignity, respect from your peers, respect from your fellow man, and then deliver and reciprocate.
I can confidently say I'm not the richest man in the world. I don't make the most money, but I've reached a point in my life where I make enough income that I'm content with my life. Like literally, I know this sounds so stupid, but like the fact that I can go to Market District, pick out groceries without really having to conscientiously think about my food budget is just a nice thing.
Well, Dennis, you've lived that where it wasn't the case.
I did.
The struggle bus, the tough times, trying to get by. So you have that appreciation.
I did, and now I have the appreciation for. I'm gonna quote. I think Oprah Winfrey had a quote.
We're quoting Oprah on the SMT.
I'm gonna quote Oprah because my dad always quotes her. She said, "I grew up poor and I got to live rich. Being rich is better." Scratch out rich for middle class. Middle class is better, and I'm happy with it. Like, I look, man. I mean, obviously, if I could make more money, I want more money, sure. But like, I'm just saying, like, as long as I can live something somewhat like this lifestyle, where I get to go to the grocery store, get to enjoy some nice steak, once in a while, eat good, sleep good, I'm good. Like,
you know what, Dennis? I will tell. I've respected you before this episode. I respect you more now because I think you appreciate what you have, and you've experienced things that could crush people. And here you are, loving and appreciating where you've been and how you got here. So big ups to you and respect.
Thank you, Sneed. No. I just want to be clear. I know I didn't get here alone. It took other people.
Nobody can. Absolutely. So true.
And I hope to pay it forward by helping other people with my current position. I hope to pay it forward.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, it's getting late, man. It's almost 10. I do have to get up.
It's a good note to end the show on, man. I mean,
that was awesome, Dennis.
Yeah.
Dennis, I think it's only a matter of time until we actually have some kind of a podcast that's like not tech.
I mean, Sneed, I've told you this before.
I know. I think it's just I think it's a matter of time, and I've got the other YouTube channel that literally no action.
Let's sign the paperwork. 50-50 partnership. I'm in.
I think it's worth it. I think we just got to come up with a catchy title, and I think we just do a weekly joint, man.
Well, Sneak, can I just say real quick before we end out the show, I want to thank you for having me on. I know we didn't get the normal guests, but I'm really glad we got to have this. It's been a long time since we had a nice conversation like this, and I want to thank everyone in the community. Hopefully no one took anything I said too offensively, or if I, went against your points or anything like that, but much respect to the community, much respect to everyone that supports my man Steed, and thank you everyone again. Just enjoy the weekend, guys.
Yeah, enjoy everything, and enjoy each other, enjoy your time, and big shout out to Los for hanging out with us for a bit. Big shout out to Brandon. He was here for a bit. We'll just leave it at that, man. Awesome show. Thank you to everybody, all the super chats, all the members, the patrons, all the commenters. You guys are great. We shall see you all on the next one. Peace.